All right, welcome to another Should You Read video. I am MGG and I'm joined here by my co-host.
What's going on? It's Jugga.
What's good? It's Deuce.
And today we're doing Seven Deadly Sins. Let's find out if this manga is worth the read. All right, jumping straight into the intro. Seven Deadly Sins basically starts off with a guy named Meliodas. Meliodas is a part of this group of, I guess, former knights or bad knights or whatever of this kingdom. And kind of the story just starts off with this girl named Elizabeth who's looking for these seven deadly sins to help save her kingdom from like one of the evil knights that ended up taking over. That's kind of where we platform the story in the first, I would say, half. And then basically after that first half, we develop into more of a story following Meliodas, Elizabeth, their relationship, and the relationship of like the rest of the seven deadly sins, like their backstories and stuff like that. So without giving too many spoilers away, that's kind of the overview of Seven Deadly Sins. Jumping straight into the story, which is going to be all spoilers all the time. We completed the manga, watched a few seasons of the anime. So if you don't want spoilers, you might as well just skip to the end. Our recommendation. If you don't care or you've read it already, you can keep going. So for the story, I think here. I really don't know where to start with this. It was good. I think it definitely like hooked you, especially like I'm gonna break it up into two parts. Basically, that first part, which seems like its own kind of thing, which was like Elizabeth, Meliodas, and a couple of the sins taking back the kingdom. Right. I felt like that part of that story was good. My only issue with it was it felt like no matter what, nobody, and especially for Meliodas, nobody in the battles of that initial arc or half of the story could compare to any of the seven deadly sins. It just felt like there was always, especially in the case of Meliodas, it just felt like they were never using 100%, like all the way until that arc was done. And I felt like even in that arc was done and we saw like Meliodas use that revenge counter thing and that seemed like it actually made him take some damage, I still didn't feel like he really put 100% out, and that bothered me. But then as we moved into the second half of the story, we did get to see that, so I felt like it kind of covered that part there for me, because there I was just like, yo, these sins are just like way too OP. Like no matter what they were doing, they were super OP. So yeah, that would be my thought on that first half. That second half was great because we got to see the sins go all out. And I think they did a very good job of like the storytelling for some of the backstories, except Bond, but I'll get into that in characters. And I liked that. The only stopping point there was that I felt like they could have definitely built more on the angels versus demons concept. And I felt like they did a piss poor job with the Demon King towards the end. But those are my thoughts on the story.
All right, so when reviewing Seven Deadly Sins as a whole, for the most part, I was about the story. Like if we're just focusing like the story, the plot, why things were moving the way it was, I think that the story did pretty decently well. It kept me interested. The flow of like why this happened and this happened, it was working like really good. It had a good flow to it, for lack of a better word. Where I think it started to mess up was maybe like close to mid-season 2 of when the demons first started getting introduced. Big part being that everyone that wasn't a seven deadly sins or a demon or an angel, I guess you could say, became insignificant.
Fully insignificant.
Right.
Full trash.
So like in the first season, you pretty much saw like the holy knights of the kingdom giving the seven deadly sins like some go. Like you had Hauser, and then you had like big Gil Thunder, as well as like Dreyfus and Hendrickson, even before Homie showed out with like the demon abilities. Like you were still seeing some pretty decent fight scenes, and they were still like looking like they mattered, right? Excuse me. But as soon as like the demons were introduced, the power scale jumped so greatly that humans no longer really served like any purpose again, and any significance, and any like actual true help, minus Bond, but that's solely on the immortality, which again I guess we can get into later. That fact, along with how they were describing, how do I really say this? How they really described the reasoning between the demon, the angel, and then, oh my God, if we even want to really get into it, but the chaos side of the actual story. Like how they could have explained the why, as far as to like why they exist and why they're like why the war even like started. I thought like the flashback like helped to a decent degree, but the storytelling itself was done kind of poorly. Again, especially at the end with like a curveball that was just like redonkulously unnecessary, and could have at least been explained along at like the same timing of when they were introducing the backstories with the angels and the demons, plus the huge plot hole story enough. But like the main goddess, like the main supreme deity, they never even like finished that a part of the manga when looking back. Like the Demon King got, Chaos King got, Supreme Deity's chilling. I don't know if y'all noticed, but like they never really took care of that chick. So
yeah, I don't understand. Like, I still don't understand like who the person, like the whole relationship, like you said, why was they even like in the first place?
Exactly. They didn't. That's where they really started to fall apart. But I guess if you want to again look at the big picture, it was like that most outermost layer that they failed. But I think everything within it was decently told. Again, all the way up to, especially, which in my opinion, the series should have just ended. But when Meliodas got taken over by the Demon King, and when they beat him, that should have been the end of the story. And every explanation that they needed to explain in the story should have happened before that point. So I think that was definitely a big hole that maybe the author just like wrote himself into. I don't know all the details, but I do think that was a big fail. But again, considering how long the series was, I would still give it a pretty strong rating as far as like, the series as a whole. So it's kind of like, it's one of those sad things where I just think the series got too long. They just made it too long. They should have been able to like cut that short when it was like at its prime. So.
Right. And one additional point. Oh, sorry to jump ahead of you two.
Oh no, you
just set out. The love side of the story, I actually did appreciate. Did I enjoy it? No, that's not usually for me. But I would say that they did relationships very well for a shonen manga. Like, having like my fiance's watched the show, and she actually is like still keeping up with the seasons. Like, she actually enjoys it, and I think that is it's a subject of like the good mix of being able to kind of like get that. I mean, she appreciates the action too, but I mean, it's obviously the relationship development. Well, I wouldn't say obviously, that sounds sexist, but for her, it's that she appreciates the relationship development too as a part of the story. And I think that they did a good job of making like someone like me who tends to stray more away from those things still interested. Like, I still appreciated King and Diane coming together. I think the Ban and Elaine situation was definitely like finagling, because I felt like her being gone, then bringing her back, then saying she's like here for real, like all of that seemed like story
his power.
His
only good power he gave up. I'm like, what the fuck?
Yeah, it was just too much story finessing for me with the band part of it. So I just left that where it was. But I love the Pride Merlin situation. I enjoyed all of the other aspects of their like relationships with the Seven Deadly Sins, just not the band piece. So I gotta give them some props for doing that well, with appealing to like a mainstream shonen audience who usually strays away from that. Like, the relationships were healthy, and they weren't like, they felt natural as a part of the story, at least. Minus Meliodas Elizabeth was a little bit weird, but they were able to explain that away better towards the end. So,
Seven Deadly Sins. It's almost in the lane of Black Clover and like Fairy Tail, but it's a little different. I can't exactly like put my finger on it of what makes it different, but it's just a little different. I don't mean it probably is a relationship stuff, to be honest.
Yeah. No, I think the story's also more linear too, because it's like with those, it felt like they're their own worlds, but the way they decided to close the loop on Seven Deadly Sins with that whole like tying it back to Camelot and Arthur and all that stuff, it made it feel like the author's intention really was like that linear story explanation of how Camelot came to be in his perspective, and then like all that other stuff was kind of just extra. Like the stuff that we enjoy was like extra, but
there's one random character often that we randomly met. I hate him off the entire show. Anyway, we can talk about him probably. So Seven Deadly Sins to me, it was good up until the point where like the Demon King like started coming around. Like up until when they were fighting the Ten Commandments, I think it was fine.
True.
Once they started taking like the actual part, like the Ten Commandments out of the Ten Commandments, that's where it started to get a little wonky. Like I remember back when that what's the name? That one of the Ten Commandments that tell you the stone if you like run away from him. When like he tried to fight Pride and he was like, oh shit, I can't fight this nigga, and then like his ass turned to stone because he ran away. Like shit like that was dope. Like up until that point, but then after that, it just got a little too much. I'm like, shoot. He like just kept it going for no reason.
I thought that was definitely like that's probably like a good description of it when you really think about it, because like the Ten Commandments itself was like, I mean, like the Seven Deadly Sins like purpose, was to fight the Ten Commandments. I thought that was like, oh snap, okay, that actually kind of makes sense right there, and like how they were flowing was good. But then it's like when they start to get more into the plot and the storyline even behind that's when it started to get a little convoluted and just could have been done better, long story short. But I mean, I definitely see your point.
I mean, I agree with all of that. Is there anything else we want to put on the story? Because I feel like all the other points I have are definitely going to come out in the character ratings for the Sins. So.
No, I pretty much said my piece.
One thing about what you guys said about how everyone else became irrelevant.
Yeah.
So that didn't bother me too much. I figured that's just how it is in Shonen. Like the main niggas always eventually kind of become irrelevant. But the issue is that the main niggas also became irrelevant. It was really only Meliodas. Like even, I mean, I think until at the very end, like they almost caught up, sort of. But for a long period of time, like Meliodas and Pride were the only niggas that could even fight a fucking Ten Commandment. The rest of them were.
That's true.
They couldn't even see these niggas.
Too weak.
Loki, don't sleep on Merlin. Don't sleep on Merlin.
Merlin is different. Merlin is she is a different case. But Ban didn't even get he didn't get in that realm until like the last 40 chapters. Like we were waiting for this nigga to get a power forever, and he did shit the entire fucking show.
Yeah,
but that's my spiel on that shit.
All right. I mean, on to the characters. I mean, we can start it off with your boy Meliodas with the ratings. Whoever wants to go first.
I give him decent trash. Like, I don't like I know you say you like the relationship thing. I don't like the whole him and Elizabeth. Like it's just too much. Like Diane and King, I fuck with that. I fuck with Merlin, and Pride, but Meliodas is. The whole thing that is like a 3,000 year, they keep going through the same cycle over and over and over. I didn't really care about that shit. I think it's also a certain point where Meliodas like took a nosedive for me. And I can't say when, but in the original, like when the Knights were like relevant, I fucked with Meliodas as a character. But over time, he just became I don't know if it's too powerful or what it is.
I think
I
he
just didn't
lacked
care anymore.
motivation. I really think he like in the second half it seemed like he had a purpose, but it didn't seem like that purpose was like attached to his motivations in the same way.
Well, his purpose
Like
was Elizabeth
obviously,
at that point, right?
yeah, it's like he wanted to save Elizabeth, right? But I don't feel like I can tell you the moments where I felt like he stated in the manga that defense point. You feel me? Because it seemed like the underlying theme of Seven Deadly Sins was relationships. Pretty much every important character in the show, or even minor characters, had some sort of relationship that we touched on. You
That's
feel me?
true.
Like
Actually,
we Guild Thunder had one, Gauther had one, Meliodas had one, his freaking brother had one. Like, and they would explore those in side stories. But it just felt like once it became to like, oh, you didn't want me to be in love with this girl, Dad. Like, it didn't feel like that fueled the story though. Like in that second half, I didn't feel like I got enough of that when it came to Meliodas doing shit. Like I didn't feel like he was like, yeah, I'm doing this because I love Elizabeth. It was just like always a hidden thing. And remember, they were also like, oh, we can't tell her because if we tell her, she's gonna like forget all her memories and like the 3-day window starts. So it was like by the time it got to that point where they told her, it was already like almost the end of the manga. You know what I'm saying? Where that 3-day window started and the curse was gonna happen. And it was like I just felt like I appreciated the stoicness in the first half, like you were saying. And I think it matched up because he was so much stronger than all of the characters in the first half, and that's what made it enjoyable. But in the second half, when they were like more even, he still had that stoicness, and it just wasn't like I just didn't appreciate it. I didn't feel like I got to see any growth from Meliodas in that second half, and I felt like that was supposed to be his growth arc. I don't feel like he changed at all. I felt like they just solved the problem for him, and then he was like, "All right, cool, I can go back to being the old Meliodas."
yeah, that's where, in my opinion, it comes a little tough, because at least from how they explained it, it actually makes sense why you feel that way. It's not like what how you feel is invalidated, but more like that kind of reaction is on purpose based on what the author wanted, if that makes sense. Because like Meliodas' whole thing was, if he ever shows emotion, that wrath, that's when ish gets real and he ends up effing up, like, him, his fam, blowing up cities because he can't contain his emotion. Like, his whole character is to purposely not show emotion when making decision, like the kind of like always be thinking logical and not emotional kind of thing. Even though obviously his emotions for Elizabeth was, always that low-key driving factor, but he just never wanted to show it. And that's been like that since the get-go. So even when he's even like made that low-key progress underneath, he still had that dry/cold exterior that you just weren't gonna see until, I guess you can argue, when he bust out, like pretty much full demon, and like was faking to the DK that he was gonna take his spot. But as you said, that was close to the end of the story. I also want to just take a note to kind of address the audience directly, to kind of like also show how we're kind of seeing the series, and which in my opinion is kind of a flaw in the story. But the whole manga in a total is 346 chapters. Okay, what we've been pretty much like, as you've been seeing with me, MDG, and Deuce, I believe, is that we've been kind of thinking about the series as halves. Halves meaning like when the demons kind of show up and start making like a big impact on the story, and the first half being that it was pretty much all humans, and then like I guess if you want to say Meliodas as the demon, and then Giant, Diane, Fairy, but pretty much like the kind of basic to it gets real. If you think about it though, when I'm looking at these chapters, that doesn't actually start happening until like 200 something. So it's not even the halfway point. It's actually more than that. But we don't even think it really starts getting real or significant for us to remember until that point, which means that there are so many chapters that we're like considering insignificant and really not that important to the story, which I just want to tell the audience that like that's just another sign of you got to be a little wary of the story. So I just wanted to take that time to point that out.
No, that's true. But yeah, I mean, to continue on with the Meliodas point, like, you gave him your rating, but did you have anything else you want to add about him as a character, Juice?
No, I think we kind of touched on all my
Yeah.
feelings about him.
Yeah, and I mean, I kind of said mine too, so I just tossed my rating for him out there, which is like, I think I'm gonna give him. It's hard because I want to break it into like those halves we were talking about.
Sure,
I
yeah.
felt like in the beginning he was great, but I felt like kind of failed. So I would say if I would just like try to fuse them, I think I'm gonna give him a decent minus. I felt like that minus is primarily coming from the second half. The story was all about him, but yet I felt like I never saw him in the second half. And then the beginning was just like, I mean, he was a great character. He was just OP strong, funny, interesting, like seemed like a good leader. The second half, it just seemed like it was more like, let's save Meliodas, but like it just didn't seem like Meliodas was there, whether it was physically, mentally, or like whatever, emotionally.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I give him decent minus.
It's tough for me too, simply because it's hard for me to ignore just all around stupid power. And I think like MGG, you mentioned the scene too, but when Homie was able to split a mountain with a stick, like that stuck with me. Like,
oh yeah.
Like I've
the scale of Seven Deadly Sins was great, and I think that's also like the negative for us as like shonen readers is when you build a world like that, you want it to be more about the powers and abilities than it was. It seemed like that was more of a backdrop to this love story than I think I wanted it to be. I really wanted them to focus a little bit more on the powers because Seven Deadly Sins scale wise, like it's up there with some of the biggest as far as like what those characters can do and what they were putting out there. But it was like that love story kind of distracts from the fact that Van just, which we'll talk about a little bit more, but when he's just like, all right, yeah, fuck it, I'll just give my powers away. It's like, well, for the shonen part of me is like, that's the stupidest thing I've ever heard, bro. Don't you gotta still like catch bodies? And then like the end of the story pretty much just makes them parents. But I'm like, you guys are fucking gods. You know what I'm saying? And they were just like, yeah, fuck it. They just like staying home moms and dads now. Like it didn't add up to me. But sorry to cut your rating off. I'll talk about it.
I mean, like it pretty much goes to what I was saying, like the complication here, because like that kind of character was that just kind of like raw power, the non-logical kind of power, where like a stick didn't even do nothing really. You pretty much just slice them down with your hand. I mean, like when you have someone so OP, but then like be shown with all these kind of like different random lights, and I don't want to come for like, you know, the romance readers out there, but it's just, in my opinion, it kind of took away from it. I mean, yes, it was the motivation, but it's like when it could be more dope battle, there was like, you know, so much time focused on the romance. So as a character in general, I gotta give him like a decent, maybe like a decent plus. I'll say decent plus.
All right. So let's move on to the second in command, because I'm gonna have a lot of shit to say about him, and I think we all do. Ben. For me, if I'm tossing out the rating right now, he's definitely trash. I think he had redeemable qualities in the beginning, but towards the end of the story, it just became more about the author not really giving him the respect he deserves, being given the position he put him in the first half of the story. Because like the first half, he was like Meliodas' rival, XYZ, and it seemed like Meliodas just had an insane amount of growth. And basically that second or rival spot kind of was taken by Pride indirectly. Like Pride never directly was like, yo, I'm your rival. But it was like, as far as strength-wise go, and when we were thinking about like fights and matchups in our like reviews and stuff, it was always like, well, Pride might be able to back him up. You know what I'm saying? But never really Van. And that was disappointing to me. And then with the whole like Elaine storyline, I felt like the author was kind of just like writing his love story, like giving him plot armor for his love story. I don't know how to put it in the best words, but the whole Elaine coming back to life thing and then being a permanent fixture, I thought was total like plot armor bullshit, and not in the shonen fighty way, but in the like romantic story way. It just didn't make sense in terms of the reality of the world, and was never truly explained. But I felt like he also did like to do that with a couple other characters, because he kind of did that with Diane's master too. It just like these characters who you either assumed dead from kind of the way he told the story, were just like alive and just like doing shit randomly. Just come out of nowhere doing shit. Or like these 10 commandments that two of them were like, one was a previous giant master and the other was like a previous fairy king. Like that shit was just totally left field to me. But let me keep it to Ban anyways. He's trash because his character his character wasn't that interesting, and he just ended up starting off on a high point, and I would say slowly dropping the more I learned about him and his character and his choices. That's why he's trash to me.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. To be honest, I give him a trash too. He relied way too much on his immortality, even in my opinion, from the beginning. And it was never really about his strength, but only about that one ability. And when even like he was, making noise like for the good side, actually representing to a decent extent, he ended up betraying Meliodas and then felt super salty about betraying Meliodas for like a decent chunk of the story, which just kind of annoyed me. And like as far as him, like as you said, like living up to the rivalry between him and Meliodas, like possibly at least having like that kind of strength or power significance, that didn't happen until like the last 20, 30 chapters of the actual series itself. So it was just like, really, dude? Like you couldn't have any kind of come up at all, like at all. And it was just like very sad. Not to mention, I'm sorry, like this is kind of like a low-key dog on Merlin, but you then find out that like his special weapon and tool has just been like chilling with Merlin this entire time for like chapters on chapters on chapters, when she could have just gave it to him like probably even 100 chapters from the ending of the series. It's like, wow. So like,
and it was such a shitty reveal too, because it was like, when we saw all the other magic tools pop up, like it drastically changed the game. And while it did maybe help Ban, at that point they were like gods, more or less, to me. So I felt like I didn't even get to appreciate what it might have done to his power level the way I did when Diane got the hammer and you see the entire landscape like change when she like dropped that motherfucker on the ground. You feel me? Yeah. And like King and the Spirit just had so many options, and it felt like that thing kept growing. And Meliodas, when he got his sword, we were like, he was cutting mountains with sticks, and now he has like his actual weapon. Like it just felt like the hype was already gone by the time Ban finally got his joint. It was like, it was almost like the author forgot about Ban for a long period of time. And was just like, oh shit, I forgot, like I didn't do X, Y, and Z. Let me just get this shit done now for him.
Yeah. So I'm not sure if you want to like really go against like the story with Bond's character for that, but Bond still took a hit because of it. So unfortunately, that does affect his rating. So that's a consequence, of your life. Sucks to suck. Sorry to say. But yeah, no, just overall, Bond just got like a trash for me. I mean, I know, like I understand like doing what you got to do, for Babe, but at the same time, I mean, she was kind of dead and gone for a while. And that should have had like a close to it after she got brought back, and then should have disappeared again. But now they kept her back, so they just kept that going. Anyways, yep, trash for me.
I mean, yeah, Ban is definitely a trash. I don't have much to say, really. I mean, so I know how we talked about the different, like where Meliodas started to fell off. Like Ban fell off like way before that. Like it was before all the angels and demons even popped up. He was already like he already fell off to me. Right. I think like his peak is probably the last when he fought Meliodas that one time. And he like gave Meliodas some dope. That was it. Like he hasn't done anything else since. And then the whole thing with the girl, I forgot her name, the king's girl, sister or something.
What?
That just made his character. Yeah, that just made his character even worse. Yeah, Elaine, whatever her name is. It's just terrible. I thought it was. It's like you said. He was like he forgot about him, and then he's like, oh damn, I forgot about this nigga. Let me hurry and squeeze in some last minute
Bullshit.
plot. Yeah,
Yeah,
for his ass. Give him some kind of story. That's really all that happened.
pretty much.
All right, with that, let's get a little palate cleanser. Let's move on to someone I think we all fuck with, Pride.
Hey.
I would say, like, for him, of all the characters here, I think I always got to be wary about the lits, but I think I can honestly say he's lit. I feel like not just because of like the cockiness, like that part was dope, but he did actually have like character and story development, unlike Ban. Like I felt like what I wanted from Meliodas and what I wanted from Ban, I kind of got in Pride. Like he didn't get his love interest, and it's arguable that his love interest really ain't fuck with him until like he was like, "Yo, I'm about to die," and she was just like, "Oh, okay, you know, like I'll honor you by like keeping this burn wound or whatever the fuck," but. That I was like, it was still like debatable on whether Merlin was really in it the same way he was. And then of all the knights, it's like Pride pretty much had everything the various characters in the show lacked. Like he was actually a knight, like a regular knight, not with no like cloudy blood, like or racial lineage where it's like he was a giant or a fairy or a demon or an angel, and he actually was able to work himself into a decent knight. I mean, obviously he had that broken ability, but at the same time, it's like you wanted to see a Guild Thunder achieve something like that, and he did it. You wanted to see like the Hauser achieve something like that, and they did it. You feel me? Like, so I feel like Pride pretty much encompassed everything I wanted from a lot of the other characters in one, on top of like the dope cockiness. Like Meliodas' cockiness or stoicness didn't compare anything to how much shit Pride talked and how amazing it was to see him fight. And I love the way the author played it in the Ten Commandments, because even when we first met Pride and we saw how broken he was with Galen, I don't think anybody still thought he was up there, right? Like, because remember that guy that ended up being evil, Esterosa or whatever. I mean, he was already evil, but like weirder evil. We thought that he was like going to be the one to not fuck with. You feel me?
Right.
And when Meliodas disappeared for that second, exactly, when Meliodas disappeared for that second, everybody who was reading was like, yo, this guy's out of commission. Like, it's over for the Seven Deadly Sins. There's no way they're beating this guy. Pride shows up to that battle and curb stomps this nigga, and you're just like, yo, I can't ever sleep on this nigga ever. Like, he told me, like, I can't put no type of smut, no type of disrespect on this nigga name. And I mean, outside of that, those moments, which were, I thought, amazing and really made me appreciate the story, he actually developed as a character. So I just can't not give him a lift. I think he was decent.
Yeah, I'm gonna go with straight ditto and lit. You said it and summarized it to the best of my ability. So thank you for that. Lit.
Thanks.
Yeah, man. I mean, same. I can tell you appreciate Pride for how well you eloquently described his.
He was just well written, man. I really felt like of all the characters, that was a well-rounded, well-written character from beginning to end. It was enjoyable to see him, and enjoyable to like. I felt it when he died. I didn't cry or nothing, but like I was definitely like, "Yo, that fucking sucked." So you agree with lit too, dude?
Oh yeah, I'm going lit for sure. Yeah.
All right. Then I'll stop talking on this next one. I won't go first on this next one, but let's go with Merlin. Actually, I think that's a nice segue into Merlin.
So I'll go first with this one.
All right, go ahead.
Before I pick back up and finish the manga, I would have given Merlin a lit also, but the last like,
couple shits,
with chaos or whatever the fuck that was, that dropped it down a few pegs. I'm like, what the fuck was that? That was sad. That really was so. What was the point? What was the point? Bring Arthur back to life. Sure, fine, do what you got to do. But what was the point of this entire chaos thing? That shit like really made no sense. I thought he was about to go into a whole other arc. I really thought he was about to. I was like, that shit, it just didn't make any sense. Like,
not at all.
The entire story down there was just for her to make Arthur the king. That's literally like the entire point of the story was to make Arthur the king. Fuck out of here. So I gotta give it. I give him a decent as hell because of that. But if not, if they just cut it off when they should have, for sure. But I don't fuck with that shit. It's terrible.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, my bad. Did I cut you off? Go ahead.
Oh no, I didn't say anything. I said it's valid.
I was pretty much saying that's almost like close like another Ditto, but it was sad. I mean, like Merlin kind of had to me almost like that same intro that Pride had, in the sense of like as soon as she came on the spot, you knew she was OP. Like you knew her magic wasn't nothing to play with. That almost every battle she was a part in, she didn't have to try that hard. Like she like that's how OP they were introducing her. And they messed up with the character in general when you find out her backstory is kind of like redundant.
I love Meliodas.
Right, like if you found out she was just like another like Meliodas like fangirl, and it was kind of sad, to be honest. Like you already kind of showed that with Diane, but she moved on. But then you kind of see that Merlin was the same way. I mean, they introduced her again as like this strong, independent, confident, kind of does what she wants kind of character, and just like banging with Arthur because just why not kind of thing, And then like they introduced the whole chaos thing. And that like Arthur's like her purpose for kind of like her purpose for living in a way, or like her only goal and like guide is to like make him king because of the whole chaos fascination from the pretty much getting her heart broken. So it was just kind of sad that they had to make it about like a relationship with Merlin too. Like she could have been that outlier. She could have been that, very strong and independent female role, but they went against that too. So that was just really sad to see, especially with such an OP character. As far as the rating goes, I mean, it's not like I'm going to ignore pretty much like the entire series. I mean, that'd be kind of petty to rate her solely on that, but it did definitely hurt it. I would have gave her a lit, as Deuce would have, but I'll go down to a decent as hell minus. I won't go to decent because, again, she's still legit, but decent as hell minus.
Damn, it's tough because I off her powers and strategic abilities alone, minus the backstory, she's definitely a lit. But I think I'm gonna agree and just go decent as hell minus. What I will also add to it is, like I said, and like Jugga said, I think her character got robbed, basically. Like giving her that backstory and the whole Meliodas fangirl bullshit, like completely undermined.
Shit, yeah. They did say she was like in love with Meliodas. Oh my, I forgot about that.
That totally undermined. Yeah, that totally undermined the respect like people could have put on her name. And I hate when they do that to like great women characters. Like it's okay for her to just be like a great woman and not have to do any of that love bullshit. And it was like that love thing combined with the other Arthur love thing. It was just like, bro, it made me a little bit pissed at her from the relationship standpoint of like, damn, you really friend zoning this nigga Pride. Who's the only nigga fighting for you.
This little nigga, he a little nigga, bro.
Right. And especially her age too, he's still like a little nigga, bro. And that was like the weird part. It's like, bro, you old as hell. Like, why are you riding this little boy dick? But anyways, that shit was weird to me. And I felt like even with the whole chaos thing, it still didn't really explain why her and Arthur's bond was so strong. I didn't get it. Or why she was like riding for him so hard. None of that really made sense to me. It just seemed like she was just being petty because Meliodas wasn't fucking with her, right? Like, so regardless, that really bothered me. But as far as like what she was able to do for the story and in the story before the end, which is why we all agree that it probably should have just ended like after that first fight with the Demon King, maybe even before that, like with the Ten Commandments. She was great. Like she was able to hold her own with Meliodas and Pride, I think, in terms of like fighting capabilities. It was always great to see her fight. She always had something up her sleeve, and I enjoyed that part of her. So that's where most of the decent as hell is coming from. But as far as writing her story, like you need to go ahead and pass that paperwork on to someone else. She needs to get rewritten, bro. That shit was horrible. That's it. I would say next thing we can go to is Diane, and then we probably go to King after that. So who wants to take Diane? Who wants to kick us off with their thoughts on her?
I can take Diane too, actually.
All right.
Diane, and let's go to King. Like they're relevant to me. Like,
Damn.
I like their relationship, but other than that, not King. Sorry, not King. I mean that. Just Diane. Yeah, her getting the hammer and all was cool. You know, like I fuck with her relationship mainly because I fuck with King, so that's cool too. But Diane on her own, she's never really done anything for me. Like I never even after she got a little power up, I still didn't think she was like on everyone else's level. Like when King got his power up, like that nigga got his power up. He was up there for real. But Diane, she always seemed to be like kind of like a tier below the other people, the other 7 deadly sins, you know. And the whole also just the Giants in general didn't live up to what they probably should have. Even like her master was that, or not her master, but like the first
the Ten Commandment dude.
Yeah, the Ten Commandment dude. He was kind of trash too. So I'm like, it just didn't hit for me, you know. Diane is kind of a little disappointment. And low-key, I might be another female character issue, you know. So I think that's a decent minus.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Oh, you can go.
All right. Just real quick, the biggest thing with Diane is that I was rarely impressed with her fighting ability, but now that the series is over, I actually want to give her, like, I think like the biggest plus with Diane is her relationships with the rest of the 7 deadly sins. Like when you look at it, I kind of saw her as like the glue, if you would, you know. She's always the character that wants everyone to be decent with each other within the sins, and I do actually like her development from her infatuation with Meliodas over to King, because you actually got to saw those steps. Just be like, all right, yo, 1, Meliodas ain't about me, he about Elizabeth. 2, King's about me. All right, that's pretty decent. Then 3, find out why, like, actually being with King, like the actual positive notes about King and him as a character, why she like found and like ended up like coming to be in love with him. That progression I actually have a lot of respect for, as far as like a relationship standpoint. Granted, I mean, it's a shonen, yes, but looking at the whole series, I got to give big ups where big ups are due. And in the end, I mean, like, granted, again, they didn't really, at least in my opinion, really emphasize that strongly on her fighting capabilities until the end, which I personally think she got like a little OP. Granted, like all the sins kind of got OP, but I definitely think her biggest plus quality was how she evolved emotionally throughout the series. I got, if all the characters are like all the sins as far as like their emotional relationship goes, I actually give the most big ups to Diane of the Selly Dins for that. So I will give her big ups. And but again, that's still like emotional stuff, so call me a dick, but that still only gets you to a decent plus. Sorry. But yeah, there you
go. I would say for her, I think I might just go in the middle of y'all two and just say straight up decent. I think both of y'all made some good points about the boringness of her character. I think I was very disappointed because compared to the beginning, you know what I'm saying? They definitely set it up like there was a lot of growth for the fairies and the giants. And I feel like when we finally got to those both of those growth arcs, King's ended up being more than what I thought it was going to be, which was great. And it was good to see him like bust out that fight and all those skills. But for Diane, with like the ability to do that whole earth magic and earth bending bullshit that her master like kind of taught her indirectly to do, it just didn't really turn out to much. And plus she was from like that special race of people that could do like that dark matter kind of thing. It just seemed like they never wanted to put enough respect on it. And I think that's where that relationship aspect that the author seemed to prioritize kind of blocked the shonen part of it that we wanted to see, like that world building, that ability building, the power thing. I felt like he or she, I don't even know what the author's gender is, but they added that they would season these like power development things, but then they really wouldn't develop them well. And I felt like that was a subject of them wanting to focus more on that romance piece than the actual like world building shonen piece. Because if they really wanted to, they could have definitely kept 7 Deadly Sins going for a while. But the story felt very linear, right? Like in retrospect. So that was my issue with her. I felt like they definitely could have gone plenty of places with her ability and character growth, but instead they chose not to. She kind of just ended up being somebody that just hung around just to hang around. And I was disappointed in that. I did appreciate the relationship with King. I'm glad she finally accepted him. It was good to see them get together and stuff. But I also didn't like that whole forgetting her memory piece that they try to add into the story for her. And like the King doing it. Like that shit, I didn't enjoy it. Like, so yeah, I think I'm just gonna go straight decent. I might even lean towards a decent minus on her. Before we do King, let's just do Gothic because I think that shit should be quick. For me, I'm gonna just jump into the Gothic joint right there. That nigga is probably, I would argue a trash, but I will also say I don't know enough about him still to even fully say it's a trash. Yeah, to even fully say it's a trash. I actually liked, I maybe even liked the original Gauther more than I liked that Gauther. The only memorable scenes for him really was just the part where he did that shit to Gilda or whatever her name was. He like brainwashed her and shit. I felt like that was the only part I was like, oh damn, like that was interesting, sort of. But every other scenes I've seen him in, that whole little thing that he went through where he was trying to like redeem himself and shit, like all that was like lame to me. And his power itself, I still don't even truly understand or grasp. So also kind of lame and boring to me. So yeah, overall, I would say if I had to give him a rating, he's probably somewhere in the trash, right? Because I just think if there was like a Gauther arc, I don't even remember reading. Oh no, I read a side story, but like there was like a Gauther focused arc, I definitely was uninterested. So I would give him trash off that, but I also don't know enough about the character.
That's a good point though. Like just for clarification for the audience sake, like were you talking about Gother as like the doll or like both characters, like the OG Gother and like this doll too?
No, I'm talking about the doll. I wouldn't even consider the OG Gother a real sin. He's more like an extra character. And the fact that that guy was more interesting than the original Gother that we've dealt with for like probably, like you said, up to 200 chapters at that point where we met him, is just says more than enough about the doll Gother's character. And also he was like a slave to Merlin too, which was another like weird thing that I was like, I didn't know how I felt about it. So
yeah, and he was a demon or something, right?
Yeah, the original Gother was.
Yeah, no, I can just jump in here as far as my rating goes, but like I'm still all around gonna give them a trash if we're talking about the doll. But the only thing I will give them, which is like completely BS and what I don't like about the story as well, but the ability to finesse the Demon King, Meliodas, and pretty much every other demon and angel. That one of their highest ranking soldiers, Mael, he turned him into a demon Estarossa. Like for him to be able to finesse such a huge thing regarding the story in general, if you really want to look at it that way. Like one, I got to give him the big ups, but two, it's big ups on BS that should have never been able to happen in the first place. So, I mean, like there's like, are you kidding me? Like we're talking about the strongest angel. Not only did you make him to a demon, but you flipped every angel and demon's memories to pretty much fit that as well. That is redonkulous. Like that's literally redonkulous. And how they were pretty much shaping it was that even like the Demon King wouldn't be able to do that. Like that's crazy. So for that fact alone, I was like, just as like a side rating, if he gets like a rating by himself, I'm giving him like a lit, because that's redonkulous. Like you broke what the story should have been able to handle in the first place. So you deserve a lit OG Gother. But no, like dog Gother, no, you trash. Pretty much kind of redonkulous and kind of petty, to be honest. So definitely trash.
Yeah, I'll give him trash too. Like you said, I don't know shit about Gother. Like, what is his power? What the fuck nigga do? What has the nigga done? What is his purpose? Like, just trash overall. Like, you can take him out of the story and I'll be fine.
Nothing changes. Nothing changes at all. All right, then I guess last, I think it's the last end.
Yeah, it's
is King. Who wants to start on that one?
Man, I'm not sure how I feel about King completely, to be honest. Yeah, let someone go. I gotta think about that.
All right, I'll give him my starting point. I think King, as a well-rounded character, he's not lit because I didn't totally enjoy King, but he's definitely close to a decent as hell, if not a decent plus. He's one of the better characters in the story that I think actually had significant growth and development. He had a decent backstory with the whole like kind of being responsible for his squad getting killed. I felt like the author spent a lot of time like showing us King and showing us his growth. So because of that, I probably have a close relation to him. Also, being a nerd, well, a nerd in general. I wouldn't even say a nerd one day in my life, but being friend zoned by a chick before and maybe coming out of that friend zone, I don't think I've had that, but it was good to see that King has did that. So I guess like that, I don't know. The nigga that was delaying back in the day, like kind of like empathized with his situation with Diane and was a little bit happy to see him get the girl at the end. So yeah, I think overall I would say he's probably like a solid decent plus character. Like if you read the story, you're never really gonna be mad at King. And he also had he'll get the plus for me just because that one moment in the tournament where he didn't have no fighting capability and he had to fight old dude. That shit was hilarious. He fought that old man and got slapped and knocked the fuck out. I thought that moment was hard. So off that, I'll go ahead and put that plus respect on his name. But yeah, he's a solid, decent character.
Okay, oh, you got it? Man, I think I'm gonna give him a decent plus. That was definitely a big factor, as you said, like him like being able to get Diane at the end. I definitely like felt good for him, and like he put in that good work. So I was just like, that's what's up. As far as like the emotional and like mental development, I would say too. As far as King developing as a character, definitely got to give him his big ups there. But again, he didn't like. I guess it's because of that development that only like you really got to see and feel satisfied at the end. That's why I can't give him any higher than decent, because like during the series, you're all just like, damn, really King, like again, like damn, like you still really trying for Diane. It's like the process in itself. It just didn't make feel good during all that changing, but at the end you finally get satisfied. But I can't ignore all that time that really took to change, like at least in the anime segment for it. So I can't again give you higher than a decent, but what you definitely get a plus for, and low key is like just touching decent as hell, but I don't think you deserve it because we only really got to see it once. But I can't ignore the fact that homie looked clean when his wings like fully developed. And like when he got that suit on and like his hairstyle changed up, got a little taller, like little slimmer, I was like, okay, King, this is the moment, bro. And like when he murked what was that? I think it was like Estarosa after he got like all them commandments, when he just like handled that kid by himself. Now like I can't ignore that scene. So like definitely go get a decent plus. But it was only that one scene, so I can't bump you up higher, but you're definitely a decent plus.
And then I'd also give him a decent plus. And actually, it might be close to decent as hell, but decent plus. No, I mean, yeah, decent as hell minus or whatever. But yeah, overall he's pretty good. I like the way King fights. Like his fights were always pretty good, and he always comes up like he always pulls something out. He was never like far behind. I feel like he was always in the mix for like decently strong niggas.
True.
He in terms of growth, he probably definitely had the most out of the seven deadly sins themselves. I mean, in actual growth and like in character growth. The other one, everyone else didn't really change much. Like what's his name? Man, he didn't change at all. I don't think
at all.
I don't think Giant really changed either. So his character just had a little more. I don't even want to call it depth, but a little extra layer, than
I think it was all the screen time.
Yeah, probably. That's probably what it was.
He was definitely like one of the first sins that we got too. So it was like he's kind of there from day one.
Yeah,
we kind of yeah.
But I'm trying to think. Did he have any arcs to himself?
Yeah, the whole like elf thing I think was I wouldn't say it was necessarily an arc, but like a part of a bigger arc, like where we kind of like go to the fairy village and figure out how he kind of fucked his people over. Like when we kind of figure out like why his sin is what it is.
Yeah.
Like I think he had one of the more memorable ones in comparison to like all the other folks. Like don't really get Merlin's. I understand Meliodas's sort of. Like out there, who the fuck knows? Ben also.
Galter doesn't even know.
Yeah, Ben kind of like same thing. Like, I don't know if I really got his sin that much. And Diane, it was also more of the same. Like, so I would say he's probably the only one where I really like was like, I get it. And Pride was just like, you get it because that nigga cocky as fuck. Like, I don't even know what his backstory really was. Just like, oh, that nigga just cocky, bro. That's why they call him Pride. Yeah, low-key, was that even his sin though?
No, it was. Like I'm trying to
okay.
I don't remember all of it. I think let's see what I can remember. It's like Meliodas is wrath, Diane is envy, Gother is lust, Merlin is gluttony.
Gother doesn't have like a set like anything. I think he's just a doll. He has no sexual organs at all.
Right.
Well, I'm just saying like that's what the show says.
I'm saying that's weird because like he's a fucking doll. Why?
Yeah, but he was in love with the chick. I felt like that's what they tried to explain in his backstory. It's like his whole thing is like when he became a doll, he ended up living with this girl for some time. I don't know if he killed her.
I just feel like
it's weird.
I think it's all random except for Pride. Really, like
yeah.
Pride is the only one that you look at that nigga.
I can see. Wait, you said Merlin's was envy?
No. Merlin is gluttony. Diane was envy.
Oh, see, I would see Merlin's as envy way more because I think she was definitely being envious of Elizabeth's relationship with Meliodas. So I would actually see that.
I can low key see both. I mean, like I always I see like the low key reasoning behind like most of the sins, and I think at least the logic they're using is that Diane was envious one because they introduced her as like the second sin in the series in general. She was the first character that we found out about, and as soon as we found out about her, we found out that she's pretty much in love with Meliodas, but Meliodas only showed love for Elizabeth. So she was like super envious for like a while until she really started growing as a character.
I forgot she fucked with Meliodas. Damn, Meliodas was getting all the stories.
Exactly.
100.
And I think Merlin got gluttony for the simple fact that after she was heartbroken, when she found out Meliodas wasn't about her either, she got super gluttonous for knowledge and pretty much to fill that empty like hole in like her soul. So she was just gluttonous to kind of like fill that, void in herself. So I think like that's the logic behind it, but they didn't play heavy into showing it. That's all.
I'm pretty sure something, right? All right. Did we rated King, right? Mm-hmm. Do you have any honorable mentions? Characters?
All the other knights. Trash.
Yeah. I think I can agree with that. Like, I had hope for Guild Thunder, but like towards the end of the story, it all disappeared.
He was cold, bro. Like when he threw that spear,
big facts.
Like I was like, oh shit, this nigga got
big
it.
Facts.
Meliodas still caught that bitch, but you still thought he was decent.
Right.
He wasn't.
And that's the sad part. Even the like great knights who were, I guess, supposed to be a tier above them, like they really didn't turn good until, like they were only really dope when they had help, basically. Like Hendrickson wasn't shit without the whatever demon he had first got in the beginning, and then when he ended up getting like some angel help, that's when he got a little bit doper. And then the other dude pretty much had a demon in him the whole time. And even that demon wasn't even one of the real 10 Commandments, wasn't he? Was he like a familiar or something?
He wanted to be one. He was
right. Exactly. So they just shitted on him even more. So it was just like, nah. All them nights was garbage. I would say, even like the Jericho ones and Gilda, like the two girls that try to have some like little relationships with sins, didn't enjoy them either. And I guess Arthur's the other one we didn't really talk about yet. I didn't enjoy him. It sucks that he ended up being the core of the story because I felt like I got that in the beginning when they first introduced him, but then he kind of like ghosted for so long and just never compared to the actual sins. like in terms of ability. They kept trying to put hype on his name, but it really didn't matter much in the end. So it was just,
I mean, like, especially when they like brought him back to be like, oh man, like I'm so dope now with this sword, and then he gets insta drop when he tries to run up on Meliodas and Zeldor. So it's like, bro, all you had to do was just, again, this is like more story, but they could have worked that in different, where he could have actually been significant help to the 7 deadly sins and just ended with, yo, I'm gonna start raising back up Camelot with Merlin's help. Let's do it. And that could have just been it. Like, they didn't even need to do the whole chaos thing.
And he had a dope power too, because I felt like minus the second power he got with Chaos, that first thing with the King of Kings, I thought was pretty dope. And also, once again, highlights my problem with the lack of story building, because it's basically like they just introduced all of these great swordsmen that they're never gonna explore. True. You know what I'm saying? Like, they just built the world, and then they were like, no, we're still focused on this relationship bullshit. So like, we're not going to like let you know who these are, but we're gonna highlight them as like great swordsmen, you know. And they even introduced a bunch of X characters. Like, remember when they had that whole tournament arc where he ends up meeting
a bunch of decent characters.
Yeah, all those niggas just showed up and then became pointless afterwards. And that's, once again, if this was like typical shonen, it would definitely not have gone that way. You would see them more. You would see them grow and develop. Even what was that knight's name? That the only knight that I felt like even stood a chance. They had that like assault group. He had a mask on his face. Like him, he should have been someone that had a significant amount of character development, and they just dropped him on the floor. Because I was like, he was the only person that actually tangled with the 7 deadly sins for a decent amount of time. Like, everyone else pretty much got curb stomped, and his squad actually put in some work for a little bit. But once again, I think he or she was too focused on the love story aspect of this manga.
As a super side note, I will give a little bit of ups to my homie Pig Hawk and Mama Pig. Thought that was actually,
I forgot about that.
They were kind of funny here and there.
I liked what they did with Hawks and the Demon King relation. I liked how they ended up making him kind of important. I thought that was dope.
And then I guess along the same lines, homie Wild, that was low-key battling the Demon King like for years, always taking L's. So I give big up for the heart. Big ups for the heart.
You get the Rock Lee Award, Hawk. Sorry, Wild.
Facts.
He came in with the heart. So for the hype of this, I mean, I think it was there. I mean, a lot of people are in it. A lot of people love it. And I would say it's definitely justified from at least the anime only folks that are hype about it. I would say their hype is justified up until this point. Towards the end of this manga, I don't think I saw anyone going like insane, or I had to debate or argue with anyone about my opinions of this like last piece of this show. So for right now, I would say that the hype on this show is justified. Like, I didn't think I saw anything over or under hyped with 7 Deadly Sins. It has the proper amount of awareness given what I experienced in the manga and some of the anime.
No, I think that's pretty much accurately said. I mean, like it was a little bit of time before the 7 Deadly Sins story really started to drop off, and then especially with the hype that anime is gathering, it's like it makes sense. Like the action, the power, and the story. At least like for the anime up to, what season are they at? I want to say maybe mid season 3, it starts to get a little questionable, but that's also because the animation studio by itself, the low key. But anyways, that's a whole different story. As far as the hype though, I think it's justified. The anime itself, again, like definitely brought out the OP action scenes that the manga was like, first getting into with the series, and all of it matches up pretty well. So I think it definitely deserves the hype, and like would have continued to deserve the hype to a decent extent. But at least for the anime goes, like for this final season, good luck with that one. I mean, I guess the action might be decent. It will be the plus, but that's all you're going to be watching it for.
I would say that it is... I would say it's the hype is accurate there. I don't think people don't like talk about 7 Deadly Sins a lot. But also, I don't think they should be talking about it a lot because it's not that great. It's not bad, but it's not, it's just 7 Deadly Sins. That's all it is. So I think it's what you should expect for something like it. Are we on? Would you rate it? I mean, should you read it or not yet? Or are we still?
No, not yet. Hype? This is just the hype part. Yeah. If you're done with that, then
So go ahead. Just going straight into that, then I'd say it depends. If you, since it's already done, I would say go ahead and read it, because it's a little different when you're like waiting for it like week to week. But now you can just kind of binge it and then be done with it. So I think in that case it's fine because you won't be as disappointed by the ending. I feel like because it'll come so fast that you never really have time to expect or to hype more than what's actually coming, So I would say, you should read it. But if you're gonna do it, just knock it out real quick and be done with it. A good time passer, nothing more than that.
I would say my recommendation for this actually would be a little bit different. I would say watch the anime only. I would say don't even bother with the manga at this point. Like the way the story's being told, you can easily wait for the seasons to just come out and finish it for you. And honestly, where they're at, if let's say they only did one more season and didn't finish it, that's where it gets shitty anyway. So you'll be good there too. So basically, I'd say I recommend you watch the anime. I don't recommend you read the manga. I don't think the story is intriguing enough for you to jump straight into it.
I would agree with that. I didn't know the anime was even still on. I thought it canceled or something.
I think they have, I'm not sure if it canceled, but I think they have one more season. The biggest issue with the previous season is that they switched studios midway and they cut some of the big action scenes I'm not sure out completely, but at least they cut them almost in half as far as to represent them accurately. So that's the biggest issue going on with the anime right now. But up to that point, it was doing pretty well. As far as where they ended, if I'm correct, they brought out all the 4 archangels, all of them are already back, and they're pretty much getting up for the final clash. So there's only one season, maybe a season and a half left of the series if they do it right. So pretty much what MGG said, I would pretty much suggest the same. The series is definitely worth checking out, but I would definitely go anime rather than manga. So you can just give all you can get all the action thirst where the story starts to drop off. So I think that fits pretty well.
All right, well, that's it. If you enjoyed this video, give us a like and a comment down below. If you enjoyed 7 Deadly Sins, disagree or agree with our thoughts, please let us know in the comment section below. And if there's any other anime, manga you want us to do a should you read or should you watch on, let us know below. But we'll catch you in the next one of these. See you later. Peace.
All right, until next time.